The champagne fountain in the center of the Rosewood Hotel ballroom sparkled under the light like flowing gold. But all I could see was Marcus's hand wrapped around another woman's waist. My ex-fiancé. The man who'd left me 6 months pregnant with a text message that read, "Can't do this. You're on your own. I shouldn't have come to this fundraising event." My sister Lucia had insisted, saying I needed to stop hiding, that I deserved one night to feel beautiful again. She'd lent me a burgundy silk gown that somehow still fit over my 7-month belly, had done my hair in soft waves, and promised she'd stay by my side all evening. But Lucia was across the room now, trapped in conversation with her boss, and I remained solitary near the silent auction tables, watching Marcus laugh at something his new girlfriend said. She was tall, blonde, and everything I wasn't, everything I couldn't be anymore. I laid my hand against my stomach, feeling my son's slight kick against the surface of my palm. At least I had him. At least something good had come from the wreckage. "Irene," I turned, and there he was. Marcus, approaching with that familiar, confident stride, his girlfriend trailing behind him as an accessory. My heart didn't race anymore when I saw him. It simply stopped. Then, it restarted with a dull, resigned rhythm. "I thought that was you," he said, his eyes dropping immediately to my belly. "You're still pregnant?" I finished for him. "Yes, Marcus. Babies take 9 months. That's how it works." His girlfriend, Simone, I remembered her name from his Instagram, giggled. Actually giggled. The sound resembled nails on glass. "Wow," Marcus said, shaking his head. "You really went through with it. I told you it wasn't the right time, Irene. We weren't ready." Heat crept up my neck. Around us, I could feel people beginning to notice, turning slightly, their conversations quieting as they listened. This was precisely what I'd feared. Precisely why I should have stayed home. "You weren't ready," I corrected quietly. "I never had a choice about being ready. You made that decision for both of us when you left." "I saved us both from a mistake," Marcus said, his tone escalating just enough to carry. "Look at you. Do you really think you can handle a kid on your own? You couldn't even handle keeping me interested." The words impacted like a punch to the gut. I felt my breath catch, my vision smudging at the edges. Simone moved closer to Marcus, whispering something that made him smirk. Then she looked at me with mock sympathy. Honey, you're trying so hard with that dress, but you can't hide the desperation. A single mom at your age? That's going to be rough." My hands quivered. I wanted to say something cutting, something that would wipe those smug expressions off their faces, but my throat had closed up. The area felt too hot, too bright, too exposed. "Is there a problem here?" The voice came from behind me, low and velvety as aged whiskey. I didn't turn around immediately because something about that voice made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It carried weight, authority, the kind of presence that changed the entire energy of a space. Marcus's expression changed instantly. The smugness drained away, replaced by something I'd never seen on his face before. Fear. I turned. The man standing beside me was tall, easily 6'2", with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. He wore a black suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his body, which it probably had, and his eyes had the hue of espresso, dark and intense, and currently fixed on Marcus with an expression that made grown men reconsider their life choices. I recognized him. Everyone in the city recognized Enrico Sala, at least by reputation. The Sala family had controlled specific business interests in the city for 3 generations. Legitimate businesses, primarily. Restaurants, real estate, import-export. But everyone knew the rumors. Everyone gossiped about the connections, the power, the danger that came with crossing anyone who bore that name. And he was standing beside me like a shield. I asked if there was a problem. Enrico repeated, the sound of his voice even more subdued now. Somehow that made it more menacing. "No, sir. Marcus said quickly. We were just catching up. Old friends. Friends. Enrico's eyes moved to me, and something in his expression eased fractionally. Is that what you were doing? Catching up with an old friend? I should have said yes. Should have diffused the situation and let Marcus and Simone slink away. But something in the way this stranger looked at me, truly looked at me, not beyond me, or past me, or at my belly with judgment, made me tell the truth. No, I said quietly. He was reminding me that I'm a mistake, that my baby is a mistake. Enrico's jaw stiffened. He turned back to Marcus, and the temperature in our small circle seemed to drop 10 degrees. You said this to her, Enrico asked. Here, tonight? We were just, Marcus stammered. Answer the question. It's complicated. It's very simple, Enrico interrupted. You insulted this woman. You insulted her child. In my city. At an event I'm hosting. My eyes widened. Was he hosting this? I swept my eyes across the room, seeing the subtle Sala family crest worked into the floral arrangements, and the silent auction items, including dinner at Sala's, the family's flagship restaurant. Marcus had gone pale. Mr. Sala, I apologize. I didn't realize that she was mine, Enrico finished, and my heart stopped beating entirely. His arm moved around my waist, carefully, gently, mindful of my belly, and pulled me against his side. The heat of his body passed through the thin silk of my dress. He had the scent of cedar and something more intense, more exotic. Bergamot, maybe. My head spun. This is my son, Enrico continued, his hand moving to rest lightly on my stomach. The baby kicked upon his palm, as if in reply to his touch. And this is the mother of my child. If you have something to say about either of them, you'll say it to me. The quiet that ensued was absolute. Marcus and Simone stood like a statue, and around us, the crowd had ceased pretending not to listen. Every eye in the vicinity was on us. On me. Enrico Sala's hand was resting possessively on my pregnant belly. I didn't know, Marcus at last managed. She never said, why would she need to explain herself to you? Enrico's voice was deadly quiet now. You're nothing. Less than nothing. You're the man who abandoned her when she needed you most. You should be grateful I'm letting you walk out of here. It wasn't a threat. It was a vow. Marcus grabbed Simone's hand and practically dragged her away, disappearing into the crowd. The moment they were gone, conversations resumed around us, but I could feel the speculation, the gossip already beginning to spread. I moved away from Enrico, breaking contact, my thoughts spinning. Why did you do that? I asked in my trembling voice. Why did you lie? He looked down at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than intimidating authority on his face. There was curiosity there, and something else, something I couldn't name. Who says I lied? He said. Then he smiled just slightly and offered me his arm. Come with me, Irene, we need to talk. I was rooted to the spot in the aftermath of Enrico Sala's claim, my mind having difficulty understanding what had just happened. Around us, the gala continued, but I could feel the shift in attention. People were watching, whispering. The story was already spreading rapidly through the room. Enrico Sala had publicly claimed a pregnant woman and her unborn child. I don't understand, I managed, my voice faintly, softly spoken. I know. His hand remained extended, patient. That's why we need to talk. Somewhere private. All intuition I had screamed at me to walk away. To find Lucia, leave this place, and pretend tonight had never happened. But another part of me, the part that was tired of being afraid, tired of being ashamed, tired of facing everything alone, wanted to know what he meant. Why did he do this? What he wanted. I took his arm. His muscles were strong beneath the expensive texture of his suit, and he moved through the crowd with the kind of ease that came from a lifetime of people stepping aside for you. We passed through the main ballroom and down a hallway adorned with oil paintings of the city's skyline at various points in history. He stopped at a door inscribed private and produced a key, unlocking it to reveal a small office. The space was masculine and understated. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, a desk neat enough to suggest it wasn't actually used very often. A single window overlooks the urban glow. Enrico closed the door behind us and indicated to one of the chairs. "Please, sit." I held back, lowered myself carefully into the chair, grateful to be off my feet. These heels had been a mistake. Everything about tonight had been a mistake. He didn't sit behind the desk as I expected. Instead, he took the chair across from me, close enough that I could see the fine lines around the edges of his yiz, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. "I'm sorry," I said, the words flowing out. "For whatever trouble this causes you, I'll tell people it was a misunderstanding, that you were just being kind." "Is that what you think?" he asked. "That I was being kind? Weren't you?" He studied me for an extended moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "I was being opportunistic." My nerves jolted. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said deliberately, "that I've been looking for someone exactly like you. And you walked into my event at exactly the right time." Fear passed through me. I started to rise. "I should go. Please." He held up a hand. "Let me explain. You're not in danger, Irene. Not from me. But I do have a proposition for you." "How do you even know my name?" "Your sister works for Castellano Legal. They handle some of my family's contracts. I've seen you before, actually. You came to drop off lunch for her about 8 months ago. I was in a meeting in the conference room when you walked past." 8 months ago. When I'd still been glowing with early pregnancy, before Marcus had left, before everything had fallen apart. "You remember that?" I asked, disbelieving. "You were wearing a yellow dress," he said. "You smiled at everyone you passed, even the security guard, especially the security guard." Heat rose within my cheeks. I did remember that day. I'd been so happy then, so naively confident that everything would work out. "What do you want from me, Mr. Sala?" "Enrico," he corrected. "And what I want is simple. I want you to let me claim your child as mine, publicly, permanently." The space wavered. "You want... what? Why?" He leaned back in his chair, and for the first time, I saw fatigue in the look on his face. "My father is dying," he said bluntly. "Pancreatic cancer. He has maybe 3 months left. His greatest wish, the thing he talks about every time I visit him, is seeing me settled, married, with an heir." "So marry someone," I said. "You're Enrico Sala. You could have any woman in this city." "Could I?" His smile was bitter. "You don't know what it's like, Irene. Every woman who's interested in me is interested in the name, the power, the money. They see me as a prize to be won, a status symbol, not as a person." "And you think I'm different?" "I know you are. You didn't even recognize me at first. You weren't impressed by my intervention. You were confused by it. You're not trying to manipulate me or use me. You're just trying to survive." He wasn't wrong, but this was crazy. "I can't just pretend my baby is yours," I said. "That's fraud. That's lying to your dying father." "Is it lying if he never asked the right questions?" Enrico countered. "I'm not suggesting we claim I'm the biological father. I'm suggesting we allow people, including my father, to draw their own conclusions. You need protection, support, resources. I need to give my father peace before he dies. We can help each other. By entering a fake relationship. By entering a real marriage." The words paused in the distance between us. I looked at him, sure I'd misheard. "Marriage," I repeated. "A practical arrangement," Enrico clarified. "You would have security. The Sala name offers protection that extends far beyond money. No one would dare hurt you or your child. You'd want for nothing. And when my father passes..." He paused, something complicated flitting across his face. "We can revisit the terms. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. You'd be provided for, regardless. And what do you get out of this? Besides making your father happy? His eyes met mine, and I saw something raw there, something nearly vulnerable. Peace, he whispered softly. A chance to be something other than what everyone expects. A reason to build something instead of just maintaining what my family has always been. I laid my hand on my belly, feeling my son move below my palm. This was crazy, impossible. I couldn't marry a man I didn't know, couldn't let him claim my child. Could I? I need time, I said, to think. Of course. Enrico reached into his jacket and produced a business card. This is my private number. Call me when you've decided. But Irene? He waited until I looked up. That man who humiliated you tonight? He did you a favor by leaving? You deserve better than someone who sees you as a burden. And your son deserves a father who will claim him with pride, not shame. My sight dimmed with unexpected tears. I took the card, my hands lightly touching against his. How do I know I can trust you? I spoke quietly. You don't, he said honestly. But trust has to start somewhere. Let it start tonight. He stood and offered his hand, helping me to my feet. My legs felt unsteady, my mind spinning. Let me take you home, he said. My sister, I'll have someone let her know you're safe. She can collect your things from coat check. I should have argued, should have insisted on finding Lucia myself. But I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and the thought of facing the crowd again, of enduring more stares and hushed tones, made me want to disappear. Okay, I heard myself say. Enrico's car was exactly what I expected. A sleek black sedan with leather seats as soft as butter and a driver who appeared the moment we exited through a side door. The man opened the rear door without a word, his face impassive. This is Dante, Enrico said as he helped me inside. He's been with my family for 20 years. You can trust him. Dante nodded once, meeting my eyes briefly. There was something kind his age-ordered face, something that made me relax fractionally. The drive through the city was quiet. Enrico took a seat next to me, not touching, giving me space to breathe and think. Outside, the night was lively with lights and movement. People heading to bars and restaurants, living their uncomplicated lives. Where do you live? He asked. I gave him my address, a humble apartment in a neighborhood that wasn't dangerous, but wasn't exactly safe either. The type of place where you learn to keep your head down and your doors locked. When we pulled right outside my building, Enrico studied the peeling paint on the facade, the winking street lamp, the cluster of adolescents smoking on the corner. You live here alone? He asked. It's not so bad, I said defensively. The rent is reasonable. Irene. He turned to look at me. If you agree to this arrangement, one of the first things that happens is you move. Somewhere safe. Somewhere worthy of raising a child. I don't need you to rescue me. I know, but let me help anyway. There was something in the sound of his voice which caused my throat to seize. When was the last time someone had wanted to help me without expecting something in return? I'll think about it, I said again. That's all I ask. Dante came around to open my door, and Enrico walked me to the building entrance. The teenagers on the corner had gone quiet, watching us, watching him. Even here, in this overlooked pocket of the city, people recognized power when they saw it. Thank you, I said, for tonight, for defending me. You don't need to thank me for basic decency, Enrico replied, but you're welcome. He waited until I was inside, until I'd reached the stairs, before returning to the car. I watched past the grimy lobby window as the sedan pulled away, taking with it the strange, impossible evening. In my apartment, I kicked off the heels and plopped down onto my worn-out couch. Enrico's business card still held tightly in my hand. The silence weighed heavily around me, broken only by the muted voices of my neighbors arguing through the thin walls. I looked down at my belly, at the swell where my son became more powerful every day. What do you think? I spoke quietly. Should Mama make a deal with the devil? He kicked, a firm thump pressed to my ribs, and despite everything, I smiled. My phone rang. A text from Lucia. OMG. Call me right now. What happened with Enrico Sala? I turned off the phone. Tomorrow. I'd deal with tomorrow. Tonight I needed to decide if I was brave enough, or desperate enough, to accept support from the most dangerous man in the city. I didn't sleep. By the early morning, the light shone through my thin curtains, and I'd worn a path in the carpet from pacing. Every time I convinced myself that accepting Enrico's offer was insane, I'd remember Marcus's face, his meanness, the way Simone had looked at me like I was garbage. Every time I decided to call Enrico and say yes, fear would grip my chest, and I'd imagine 1,000 ways this could go wrong. My phone had been ringing all night. Texts from Lucia, from my mother, even from a few acquaintances I barely remembered giving my number to. The gossip had circulated more quickly than I'd imagined possible. By morning, I had 17 missed calls and 43 unread messages. I ignored them all. Instead, I made tea and sat near the window, observing the city wake up. Street vendors set up their carts. A woman walked 3 small dogs. A taxi driver changed his tire. Normal people living everyday lives. What was I doing even considering this? At 8 o'clock, my apartment buzzer rang. I halted, teacup halfway to my lips. It rang again. I pressed the intercom button. Yes? Delivery for Irina Castellano. A male voice, professional and bored. I didn't order anything. The delivery is from Mr. Sala. My heart rate kicked up. I buzzed him in. The delivery man who appeared at my door minutes later carried an enormous bouquet of white roses in a wrapped box. He had me sign for it, then disappeared back down the stairs without a word. I brought everything inside and set the flowers on my small kitchen table. They were stunning, the kind of arrangement that exceeded the price of my weekly grocery budget. The box was wrapped in cream-colored paper with a simple black ribbon. Inside, I found a cell phone, brand new, expensive, with a note in precise handwriting. In case you have to contact me. The only number programmed is mine. No pressure, just options. Underneath the phone was something else. A file folder. My hands quivered as I opened it. Inside were documents. Background checks on Marcus, including photographs of him with 3 different women over the past 6 months. Financial records show his debts, failed business ventures, and habit of borrowing money from friends and failing to repay it. And beneath all that, a single sheet summarizing the findings of a private investigator. Marcus hadn't just left me. He'd been planning to go for months, had started the relationship with Simone while I was still in my first trimester, had told her I was crazy, and trying to trap him with a baby. I read it all twice, my hands quivering, tears streaming down my face. Not because I still loved him, I didn't. But seeing the truth laid out so clinically made me realize how blind I'd been. How much I'd excused, overlooked, and forgiven. The new phone rang. I looked for a brief while before answering. Did you get my gift? Enrico's voice was kind, concerned. You investigated him. Last night, after I took you home. I wanted you to see who he really was. Why? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I need you to understand that accepting my help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. I lowered myself into my chair, exhausted. This is all moving too fast. I know, but my father doesn't have time for slow. And neither do you, Irene. You're due in 2 months. Where will you go when the baby comes? How will you manage the hospital bills, the time off work, the childcare? I'll figure it out. People do. Yes, they do. Through struggle and sacrifice and grinding poverty. You're strong enough to survive that, I'm sure. But why should you have to? Why should your son? Because accepting help from you comes with strings. Everything comes with strings, Enrico said. At least mine are visible. At least I'm being honest about what I want. I looked at the roses, the phone, the file that had probably cost thousands to compile overnight. The resources at this man's disposal were enormous. If I said yes, I began slowly, what would happen, specifically? Today, I'd send a doctor to examine you, make sure you and the baby are healthy. Tomorrow, we'd meet with my attorney to draft a marriage contract that protects both of us. This weekend, you'd move into a property I own, a brownstone in the North District. Safe, quiet, near a good hospital. And then, we'd arrange a small wedding, just family. My father would meet you, see that I'm settled, have peace. We'd live together, raise your son together. I'd be present, involved. A real father in every way that matters. Except biologically. Biology is an accident, Enrico said. Family is a choice. I'm choosing your son, Irene. The question is whether you'll let me. My free hand lay on my belly. The baby was quiet now, sleeping probably. He had no idea his entire future rested on the edge of this conversation. I need to meet your father first, I said, before I decide. There was a pause. That's fair. Can you be ready in an hour? An hour? Like I said, time is something we don't have much of. After I hung up, I stood under the shower spray until the water became cold, trying to wash away the surreal quality of the last 12 hours. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. But the roses on my table were real. The phone in my hand was real. And when Dante arrived exactly 1 hour later, the car waiting at the curb was real too. I'd chosen a simple navy dress, comfortable flats, and minimal makeup. If I were going to meet a dying man and potentially deceive him, I'd at least do it looking honest. The drive took us out of my neighborhood and into one of the city's older, wealthier parts. Tree-lined streets, historic homes, money that murmured instead of shouted. We stopped in front of a beautiful stone mansion with ivy climbing its walls. Dante opened my door and offered his hand. Mr. Sala is waiting in the garden, he said. I followed him around the side of the house, through a gate, and into what I could only describe as an urban paradise. The garden was immaculate. Roses, lavender, a small fountain trickling peacefully in the center. And there, in a wheelchair beneath a pergola draped with wisteria, sat an older man wrapped in blankets despite the mild morning. Enrico stood next to him, his hand on his father's shoulder. Papa, he uttered softly, this is Irene. The older man turned his head, and I saw where Enrico had gotten his eyes. Even faded with illness, they were sharp, intelligent, measuring. Come closer, child, he said, his voice fragile but commanding. I approached, my heart beating fast. Let me see you. I was before him, enduring his scrutiny. He looked at my face, my belly, then back to my face. You're the one, he sauntered at last. Yes, sir. My son told me about you this morning. Said he'd been keeping you secret because he wanted to be sure. Because he knew I'd worry, give him advice, interfere. A wheezing laugh. He was right. I would have. Guilt racked my stomach, but I held his gaze. How far along? He asked. 7 months. And the father? The question floated in the air. Enrico's hand clenched on his father's shoulder. A subtle warning. Irrelevant. The old man said, waving a frail hand. What matters is who will claim this child, who will raise him, love him, protect him. His eyes found mine again. My son is a good man, even though the world has tried to make him otherwise. He will be a good father, better than I was. Papa, Enrico started. It's true, I was too hard on you, too focused on the business, the legacy, the expectations. I forgot to teach you how to be happy. He reached with a shaking hand, and I automatically took it. His skin was papery, cold. Make him happy, Irene. That's all I ask. Make my son happy. Tears smoldering behind my eyes. Sir, Call me Antonio, we're family now. The simplicity of it broke something inside me. This man was dying. He wanted so badly to see his son settled, to believe his heritage would endure, to have peace in his final days. Was it really so wrong to give him that? Even if it was built on half-truths and desperate arrangements. I'll do my best, I spoke quietly. Antonio smiled. That's all any of us can do. We stayed in the garden for another hour. Antonio asked me questions about my pregnancy, my likes and dislikes, my family. I answered as honestly as I could, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. He had a dry wit, a touch of humor, and a directness that reminded me of my own grandfather. When he grew tired, a nurse appeared to take him inside. Before he left, he caught Enrico's hand. "This one," he said. "Don't let her go." "I won't, Papa." After Antonio was wheeled away, I remained by myself. I stood alone in the garden. Birds trilled in the trees. The fountain burbled. It was almost possible to forget this was all a negotiation, a transaction. "He's dying," I said quietly. "Yes, and this would make him happy." "Yes." I turned to face Enrico. "If I do this, I need promises, in writing, legal protections for my son and me. Of course, I need to know you won't try to take him from me, that no matter what happens between us, I remain his mother. Full custody, full rights." "Done. And I wavered, then pushed forward. "I need to know you won't hurt me. That, despite the rumors, despite your family's reputation, I'll be safe with you." Enrico moved nearer, his serious look. "I will never hurt you, Irene. Not physically, not emotionally. That's not a legal promise. That's a personal one. I'm asking you to trust me with your son. The least I can do is earn that trust every single day." I searched his face, looking for deception, for hidden motives. All I saw was sincerity. "Okay," I said, "I'll do it." His eyes widened slightly. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." And then Enrico Sala smiled at me. Really smiled. Not the well-mannered version I'd seen before. And I realized with a jolt of shock that he was devastatingly handsome when he let his guard down. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet. I'm probably going to be terrible at this." "Impossible. You were wonderful with my father." I felt like a fraud. "You were honest. That's all that mattered." He offered me his arm again, and this time I took it without hesitation. "Come on," he said. "We have a wedding to plan." The brownstone Enrico had mentioned was a 3-story masterpiece in one of those neighborhoods where everyone had money, but pretended they didn't. Neat gardens, quiet streets, and an area where children rode bikes without fear. Dante pulled up in front, and I stared through the window, disbelieving. "This is mine?" I asked. "It will be," Enrico confirmed. "The deed will be in your name after the wedding. Regardless of what happens, this house belongs to you and your son." "Our son," I corrected without thinking, then flushed. "I mean, if we're doing this—" "Our son," Enrico agreed, something gentle in his voice. Inside, the brownstone was even more beautiful. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, original crown molding. The furniture was comfortable without being ostentatious. Overstuffed sofas, thick rugs, shelves already lined with books. "The nursery is upstairs," Enrico said, showing me to the staircase. "But if you don't like anything, we can change it." The nursery caught my breath. Soft gray walls, white furniture, and a rocking chair positioned near the window. There were toys already arranged on shelves, stuffed animals in a basket, and a mobile hanging above the crib with silver stars and moons. "You did all this last night?" "I made some calls. I have efficient people." I walked to the crib, running my hand along the smooth railing. My son would sleep here, would grow up in this house, in this neighborhood, with opportunities I never could have given him alone. "Irene?" I turned to find Enrico watching me with concern. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No, just processing. Yesterday I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet. Today I'm standing in a house straight out of a magazine, about to marry a man I barely know. We have time to change that, the barely knowing each other part." "Do we? You said the wedding would be this weekend." "Yes, but after that we'll have years. A lifetime if you want it." The words hung between us, laden with implication. A lifetime. With him. "Tell me something real," I said unexpectedly. "Something about you that I wouldn't learn from a Google search or a gossip column." Enrico considered this, then moved to stand beside me, both of us looking out the nursery window at the tree-lined street below. "I wanted to be a musician," he whispered softly. "When I was young, before I understood what being a Sala meant. I played piano and wanted to study composition. My father, he didn't exactly forbid it. He just made it clear what was expected of me. The family business, the legacy. So I put away childish dreams and became what I needed to be. Do you still play? Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep. I'd like to hear you play sometime. He glanced at me, surprised. Would you? Yes. I think there's more to you than the scary crime lord everyone believes you to be. Crime lord, he repeated with a trace of amusement. Is that what you think I am? I think you're whatever you need to be to protect your family. I think you operate in gray areas that most people don't understand. And I think you're using me to give your father peace. But you're not a bad person for that. And if I am a bad person, then I'm in trouble, aren't I? He smiled again, and this time I smiled back. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activity. An attorney arrived with contracts that were surprisingly fair, generous even. I'd have full custody of my son, the house in my name, a trust fund established for the baby's future, and a monthly allowance that gave me a headache spin. This is too much, I protested. It's exactly enough, Enrico countered. You're giving me something priceless. This is the least I can do. A doctor came next, examined the baby, and confirmed that everything was progressing normally. She gave me prenatal vitamins and instructions for the coming weeks, treating me with the kind of attentive care I'd never received at the public clinic. Finally, a wedding planner appeared with samples, timelines, and questions about flowers and food. Something simple, Enrico told her. Family only. Elegant but intimate. This Saturday, the planner confirmed, making notes. That gives us 4 days. Tight but doable for the Sala family. After everyone left, I found myself alone in the main bedroom, staring at the king-sized bed, the adjoining bathroom with its massive tub, and the walk-in closet already half filled with clothes in my size. I had Lucia bring some of your things, Enrico said from the doorway, making me jump. She also picked out some new items she thought you'd like, if anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste. You called my sister? This morning, I explained the situation, answered her questions, assured her I wasn't kidnapping you. She was protective. I laughed despite myself. That sounds like Lucia. She loves you very much. She also threatened to destroy me if I hurt you. And what did you say? That she wouldn't have to. You'd do it yourself. He was right about that. Enrico moved into the room, upholding a respectful distance. I should mention, this is your room. I have a separate suite down the hall. I don't want you to feel pressured or uncomfortable. This marriage may be for practical reasons, but I meant what I said. You're safe here. Something deep in my heart oozed. Thank you. There's a study downstairs with a piano. Feel free to use any room in the house. This is your home now, Irene. I want you to feel that. After he lowered himself onto the bed, my hands quivered with exhaustion and adrenaline. My phone, the new one, showed messages from Lucia, amid excitement and concern. I called her. Oh my God, Irene. She answered immediately. Are you okay? Is this real? He said you're getting married. It's real and complicated. Can you come over? I'm already in the car. 20 minutes later, Lucia burst through the front door like a hurricane. She hugged me fiercely, then held me at arm's length to examine me. You look good, she said, surprised. Better than you've looked in months. I'm terrified. Good. That means you're not an idiot. She looked around the brownstone, whistling low. This is insane. You know that, right? I know, but you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway. Lucia pulled me to the couch and I told her everything. The gala, Marcus's cruelty, Enrico's intervention, the offer, meeting Antonio, the contracts, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. He's giving you an out clause, she said, uttering at last, after his father passes, you can leave. Take the house, the money, the security, and go. This isn't a trap, Irene. I know. So why do you look like you're about to cry? Because what if it works? I spoke quietly. What if this fake marriage becomes real, and then he realizes I'm not worth it? What if I let myself believe in this, and it all falls apart? Lucia took my hand. Then you'll survive, like you've survived everything else. But Irene, I've never seen anyone look at you the way he did when he called me this morning. When he talked about you, about the baby, about keeping you safe. That wasn't fake. That was real. He barely knows me. Maybe. Or maybe he sees something in you that you don't see in yourself. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe that this impossible situation could somehow work out. Will you stand with me? I asked. At the wedding? Try and stop me. We stayed up late, talking like we used to before my life had imploded. After many months, I felt like I could breathe. Like things were going to be okay. The next 3 days passed in a hectic sequence. Dress fittings, a beautiful cream silk gown that accommodated my belly and made me feel almost beautiful. Meetings with Enrico's family, aunts, uncles, cousins, received me with varying degrees of tenderness, warmth, and suspicion. Dinners where I learned to manage the intricate dynamics of a powerful family. Enrico was always there, a steady presence, introducing me, protecting me from invasive questions, making sure I was comfortable. We fell into an easy rhythm, spending evenings talking in the study while he played piano. He was talented, his long fingers fluttering over the keys with refined, practiced grace. You should have pursued this, I told him one night. Maybe in another life? It's not too late. He looked at me then, something intense within his look. No, I suppose it's not. Friday night, the night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I wandered downstairs around midnight and found Enrico in the study, sitting at the piano but not playing, just staring at the keys. Nervous? I asked from the doorway. He turned unsurprised. A little. You? Terrified. Second thoughts? No, just thoughts. He patted the bench beside him, and I joined him, our bodies close in the calm darkness. Play something for me, I said. He did. Something slow and haunting, a song that felt like longing and hope and sadness all interlaced together. I closed my eyes, permitting the music rush over me. When the final withered, we sat in silence. That was beautiful, I spoke quietly. It's incomplete. I've been working on it for years, but I can't find the ending. Maybe it's not supposed to end. Maybe it's supposed to keep growing, changing. He turned to look at me, and the space between us felt intense, electric. Irene. Yes? Tomorrow, when I say my vows, I want you to know I'll mean them, every word. This may have started as a practical arrangement, but you're not just a means to an end. You're... What? A revelation. Just as I was about to reply, before I had time to process what that meant, my son kicked hard enough that Enrico felt it through the small space between us. He laughed, surprised. He's strong. He knows his father's voice. Enrico's hand moved to my belly, hesitant, seeking permission. I nodded, and he laid his palm flat against the swell. The baby kicked again, directly into his hand. Hello, little one, Enrico murmured. I'm going to take care of you, both of you, I promise. And watching his face beneath the faint illumination, seeing the wonder there, I felt something change inside me. Something which appeared dangerous and terrifying, and achingly like hope. The wedding was at sunset in Antonio's garden, beneath the wisteria where I'd first met him. Only 30 people attended. Enrico's family, Lucia, my mother, who cried through the entire ceremony, and Antonio in his wheelchair, oxygen tube in his nose, smiling like he'd won the lottery. I wore the cream silk gown, my hair loose in curls, holding a bouquet of white roses. Enrico wore a dark gray suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a Renaissance painting. The officiant was brief, the vows traditional. When Enrico slipped the slide onto my finger, a vintage platinum band with 3 small diamonds, his hands were steady, his stare held on mine. I promise to protect you, honor you, and stand beside you, he said, today and every day after. My vows stuck in my throat, I promise to trust you, respect you, and build a family with you. Starting today. You may kiss your bride. Enrico approached, his hand cupping my face with infinite gentleness. The kiss was soft, chaste, but something transpired between us at that instant. An understanding. A possibility. When we pulled apart, everyone applauded. Antonio wept openly. The reception exuded elegance and joy. Food, music, dancing, though I couldn't do much dancing given my condition. Enrico never left my side, introducing me as his wife with evident pride. Late in the evening, as attendees started to leave, Antonio called us over. "Come here, children." We approached his wheelchair, and he took one of each of our hands and placed them together. "I'm at peace now," he said, his voice faintly audible. "Knowing you have each other, knowing the family will continue." He looked at Enrico. "Be happy, son. That's an order." "Yes, Papa." Antonio's eyes found mine. "And you, daughter. Thank you for giving this old man his dearest wish." I squeezed his frail hand, tears flowing over. "Thank you for welcoming me." He smiled, then closed his eyes, exhausted. Later, after everyone had gone, after we'd returned to the brownstone that was now our home, Enrico walked me upstairs. We stood in the hallway between our 2 bedrooms, suddenly awkward. "So," I said. "So, we're married." "We are. And now we just live together? Figure this out as we go?" "That's the plan." He stopped briefly. "Unless you'd like to change the arrangement." "If you'd prefer." "No," I said quickly. "I like the arrangement. I like my room. I like that you're respecting my space." "Good, because I meant it. I'm not expecting anything from you except what you're willing to give." I looked up at him, this man who was now my husband, and felt something warm bloom buried in me. "Thank you, Enrico, for all of this, for being kind when you didn't have to be. Kindness is the bare minimum, Irene. You deserve so much more." He kissed my forehead gently, then retreated to his room. I lay in my bed that night, my hand on my belly, and tried to process the fact that I was now Irene Sala, wife of one of the city's most powerful men, living in a beautiful home, protected, provided for, without company anymore. It seemed unreal. It seemed like the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. And as my son kicked against my hand, I spoke quietly. "Your daddy's a good man, little one. I think we're going to be okay." Antonio passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of people, politicians, business owners, and faces I recognized from the news. Enrico stood stoically through it all, accepting condolences with grace, but I saw the grief in the tension of his shoulders and the tightness around his eyes. That night, he came to my room for the first time. "Can I—" He stood in the doorway, looking lost. "Can I just sit with you? I don't want to be alone." "Of course." He sat in the chair near my bed, and we conversed for hours. About his father, his childhood, the burden of legacy and expectation. I told him about my own father, who'd died when I was 12, about how grief never really left, just came to live with joy. Eventually he fell asleep in the chair, his head tilted back, his face finally peaceful. I covered him with a blanket and let him rest. After the funeral, our lives settled into a new rhythm. Enrico worked from home more often, joining me for meals, helping me prepare the nursery. We went to doctor appointments together, his hand always reaching for mine when the baby's heartbeat filled the room. We were becoming friends, more than friends. And then, a particular evening when I was 37 weeks along, everything changed. I'd gone to visit Lucia at her office, insisting I needed to get out of the house despite Enrico's concerns. Dante drove me, waited in the car, ever watchful. Lucia and I were laughing about something, I can't even remember what, when I saw him through the office window. Marcus. He was in the lobby, arguing with the receptionist, his face red with anger. And he was looking up at the directory, searching for something. Searching for me. "Irene?" Lucia followed my gaze. "Oh, hell no." She was up and moving before my intervention, heading for the lobby. I followed, my heart pounding fast. "Just want to talk to her," Marcus was saying. "She's my child's mother, for God's sake." "No, I'm not," I said from the elevator bank. Marcus spun around. His eyes were wild, desperate. He looked thinner than I remembered, disheveled. "Irene, thank God. I've been trying to reach you, but your number's disconnected. I know. I need to talk to you. It's important." "We have nothing to talk about." "It's my baby." His speech rose, drawing stares from everyone in the lobby. "You can't just steal my kid and give him to some mobster." "I didn't steal anything. You abandoned us, remember?" "I made a mistake. I was scared, I panicked, but I've had time to think and what, Marcus? You want back in? After months of nothing, you suddenly care?" "He's my son." Marcus moved toward me, and suddenly Dante was there, having appeared from nowhere, a wall of muscle between us. "Step back," Dante said quietly. "This is none of your business." "It became my business when you threatened Mrs. Sala." Marcus's eyes widened. "Mrs. Sala? You actually married him? That monster?" Heat flashed beyond me. "Don't call him that." "Why? Because he has money? Because he can give you things I couldn't?" "Irene, he's a criminal. Everyone knows it. You're putting our child in danger." "He's not your child." The words tore out of me louder than I intended. "You gave up that right when you left. When you sent that text message. When you humiliated me at the gala. Enrico is this baby's father. Legally, emotionally, in every way that matters. You're nothing to us." Marcus's expression distorted with rage. "We'll see what the courts say about that." "The courts will say you abandoned your parental rights," said a new voice. Enrico strode into the lobby, his presence silencing each murmur. He moved to my side, his arm encircling my waist protectively. "Any claim you think you have evaporated the moment you left her," Enrico continued, the tone of his voice deadly calm. "But if you'd like to pursue legal action, I have an entire firm of attorneys who would be delighted to expose your gambling debts, your fraud, your affair with your business partner's wife. Shall I continue?" Marcus went white. "You can't." "I can, and I will. If you ever approach my wife again, if you so much as look at her, I will destroy you. Not with violence, with information. I'll make sure every person you've ever wronged knows exactly who you are, starting with Simone's husband." The threat hung in the air, absolute. Marcus looked at me, at Enrico, at Dante's impassive face, and whatever fight he'd had fallen apart. "This isn't over," he said weakly. "Yes," Enrico replied, "it is." Marcus left, practically running from the lobby. The moment he was gone, my legs gave way. Enrico caught me, lowering me gently into a chair. "Breathe, Irene. Just breathe. I'm fine, I'm okay. It's just..." Pain stabbed through my belly, sharp and sudden. I gasped, my hand rushing to my stomach. "Irene? Oh God, I think my water just broke." The next few hours passed in a flash. The hospital, the private room, the nurses and the doctors are moving efficiently. Enrico never left my side, holding my hand through contractions, coaching my breathing, his face tight with worry. "I'm scared," I murmured quietly during a still moment between contractions. "I know, but you're strong, the strongest person I've ever met." "I'm not..." "You are." He brushed hair from my sweaty forehead. "You're about to bring our son into the world. You've already survived so much. You can do this." "Our son," he'd said it so naturally, without hesitation. "Enrico?" "Yes." "Thank you. For everything. For claiming him. For protecting us. For being here. There's nowhere else I'd be." The labor was long, painful, and exhausting. But every time I wanted to give up, Enrico was there, his voice composed, his presence an anchor. And then, finally, after hours of struggle, my son was born. They placed him on my chest. Tiny, perfect, screaming his arrival into the world. I looked down at his scrunched face, his flailing fists, and felt my heart crack open with a love so powerful it hurt. "Hello, baby," I spoke quietly. "We're so happy to meet you." Enrico stood by the bed, staring at the baby in amazement. When the nurse asked if he wanted to cut the cord, he looked at me for permission. "He's your son," I whispered. His hands quivered slightly as he took the scissors, but his cut was sure. Then the nurses took the baby to clean him, and Enrico sank into the chair beside my bed, his head in his hands. "Enrico?" He looked up, and I was shocked to see tears streaming down his face. "I didn't expect—" He shook his head. "I thought this would be practical, an arrangement, but seeing him, holding him, Irene, I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of failing him, of failing you, of not being good enough." I extended my hand to his hand. "Join the club. Every parent feels that way." "Do they?" "The good ones do." He held my hand, and we sat in silence until the nurses brought the baby back, now clean and swaddled in soft blue blankets. "Have you chosen a name?" the nurse asked. I looked at Enrico. We'd discussed names, but never settled on one. "Antonio," Enrico said quietly, "if that's okay with you, after my father." Tears filled my eyes. "Antonio Gabriel, after your father and mine." "Antonio Gabriel Sala," the nurse repeated, making a note. "Beautiful." They handed my son to Enrico, showing him how to support the head and hold him securely. Enrico looked down at the baby with such naked emotion that my throat seized. "Hello, Antonio," he uttered quietly. "I'm your papa, and I promise you I will spend every day earning that title." I watched them, this man who'd been a stranger weeks ago, now holding my son like he was the most precious thing in the world, and realized with startling clarity that somewhere along the way, this arrangement had become real. I'd fallen in love with my husband. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, it seemed like arriving home. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Enrico never left, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, learning how to change diapers, asking the nurses 1,000 questions about feeding and sleeping, and all the mysteries of newborn care. When we finally brought Antonio home, the residence appeared transformed. No longer simply beautiful spaces, but a home where our son would grow, learn, and thrive. That first night was turmoil. Crying, feeding, more crying. Around 3 a.m, I found Enrico in the nursery, rocking Antonio and singing tenderly in Italian. "I didn't know you sang," I said from the doorway. He looked up, smiling sheepishly. "My mother used to sing this to me. I thought he might like it." "May I?" He handed me the baby, and I eased into the rocking chair. Antonio finally quiet in my arms. Enrico sat on the floor beside us, his head supported by my knee. "We're a family," I whispered. "We are." I didn't think this would work. I thought it would be strange, awkward, maybe even miserable. And I was wrong. "Enrico, The baby stirred, making small noises, and the moment passed. But Enrico took my hand, threading our fingers together, and I knew he understood. 3 months went by. Antonio grew from a wrinkled newborn into a chubby, smiling baby who recognized us both, who reached for Enrico with the same enthusiasm he reached for me. We fell into routines, early morning feedings where we'd talk softly, afternoon walks in the neighborhood, evenings when Enrico would play piano while I rocked the baby to sleep. We were partners in every sense except one. We still slept in separate rooms, still maintained the careful boundaries we'd established, until the night everything changed. It was late, past midnight. Antonio was finally sleeping through the night. A new development that should have made me happy but left me restless instead. I wandered downstairs and found Enrico in the study, working at his desk. "Can't sleep?" he asked, looking up. "Apparently not. You?" "Too much on my mind." I sat on the sofa, curling my legs beneath me. "Want to talk about it?" He set down his pen, examining me. "There's been some complications with the business. Nothing dangerous, but territorial disputes that require attention. The kind of complications that come with your family name." "Yes. Does it bother you, living this life?" "Sometimes. Most of the time I don't think about it. It's just what I know. But since Antonio, He paused. I want better for him. I want him to have choices I never had. He will. We'll make sure of it. Enrico stood and moved to sit beside me on the sofa. We'd been close before, but this appeared different. Charged. Irene, I need to tell you something. My heart rate kicked up. Okay. This arrangement we have. It's not enough for me anymore. Anxiety and optimism warred inside my chest. What do you mean? I mean, I've fallen in love with you. Completely. Irrevocably in love with you. And I know that wasn't part of our agreement. I know you might not feel the same way, but I can't keep pretending. I can't keep sleeping down the hall when I want to be beside you. I can't keep touching you casually when I want to hold you like you're mine. Because you are mine, Irene. You're my wife, the mother of my son, and the woman I think about from the moment I wake up until I finally fall asleep. I looked at him, my heart rate racing, my breath faltering somewhere in my throat. Say something, he spoke quietly. Please, I love you too, I said, the words flowing out. I've been so scared to admit it, so scared this was all still just an arrangement for you. But Enrico, I love you. I love the way you are with Antonio, the way you play piano when you think no one's listening, the way you always make sure I've eaten, the way you look at me like I matter, like I'm worth something. You're worth everything. He kissed me then, and it was nothing like our wedding kiss. This was desperate, hungry, months of restrained desire at last released. His hands cupped my face, mine fisted in his shirt pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his brow pressed to mine. Stay with me tonight, he spoke quietly. Not in separate rooms, together. Yes. He lifted me in his arms, carefully, always careful with me, and carried me upstairs. Not to my room or his, but to the main suite we'd never actually shared. That night, we became husband and wife in truth. And afterward, lying in his arms with the moonlight shining through the windows, I experienced a peace I'd never known. No regrets? He asked, his fingers wandering patterns on my shoulder. Not a single one? Good, because I'm never letting you go, Irene Sala. Promise? Promise. The morning after, I awoke to discover Enrico already gone from bed. For a moment, nervousness fluttered in front of me. Had last night been a mistake? But then I heard his voice in the hallway, soft and musical. I pulled on a robe and tracked the sound. In the nursery, Enrico stood near the window, holding Antonio and singing that Italian lullaby I'd heard before. The morning light shimmered on them both, father and son, and my heart overflowed so full I thought it might burst. Good morning, I whispered. Enrico turned, his face brightening when he saw me. Good morning, wife. How long have you been up? An hour, maybe. He woke hungry, so I fed him, changed him, thought I'd let you sleep. I moved to stand beside them, rising on my toes to kiss Enrico's cheek, then Antonio's forehead. My boys, I murmured. Our family, Enrico corrected. And looking at them, at this life we'd built out of desperation and reason and unexpected love, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice that night at the gala. Marcus had pointed at my belly and mocked me, trying to shame me into smallness. But Enrico Sala had claimed my son on the spot, had given us both his name, his protection, his heart. And in return, I'd given him mine. 6 months later, we stood in the same garden where we'd married, where Antonio had passed away peacefully. But this time, we weren't saying vows out of obligation or necessity. We were renewing them because we meant them. I promise to love you, Enrico said, his stare held on mine while Antonio babbled happily in Lucia's arms nearby. Through every challenge, every joy, every ordinary moment, you saved me, Irina. You and our son gave me a reason to be better than what was expected of me. I promise to trust you, I replied, tears streaming freely down my face. To build this life with you, to be your partner in everything. You showed me that I deserved to be claimed, not with shame, but with pride. That my son deserved a father who chose him, not one who was forced to stay. You gave us everything, Enrico. But most importantly, you gave us love. This time when we kissed, there was no awkwardness, no uncertainty. Only truth, only love, only the promise of a lifetime together. As guests applauded, a smaller gathering this time, just close family and friends, I looked at the man who'd become my everything and knew that our story wasn't ending. It was merely starting,